Hello, class. We're going to continue to read Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. We're currently on chapter 9, Wilbur's Boast. We're going to work so that we get this all done by the end of the school year, okay? So, let's get started. A spider's web is stronger than it looks. Although it's made of thin, delicate strands, the web is not easily broken. However, a web gets torn every day by the insects that kick around in it, and a spider must rebuild it when it's full of holes. Charlotte liked to do her weaving during the late afternoon, and Fern liked to sit nearby and watch. One afternoon, she heard the most interesting conversation and witnessed a strange event. "You have awfully hairy legs, Charlotte," said Wilbur, as the spider busily worked on her task. "My legs are hairy for a reason," replied Charlotte. "Furthermore, each leg of mine has 7 sections: a coxar, a trochanter, a femur, a patella, a tibia, a metatarsus, and a tarsus." Wilbur shot upright. "You're kidding," he said. "No, I'm not, either." Say those names again. I didn't quite catch them the first time. A coxar, a trochanter, a femur, a patella, a tibia, a metatarsus, and a tarsus. "Goodness," said Wilbur, looking down at his own chubby legs. "I don't think my legs have 7 sections." "Well," said Charlotte, "you and I lead different lives. You don't have to spin a web. That takes real leg work." "I could spin a web if I tried," said Wilbur, boasting. "I've just never tried." "Let's see you do it," said Charlotte. Fern chuckled softly. Her eyes grew wide with love for the pig. "Okay," said Wilbur. "You coach me, and I'll spin one. It must be a lot of fun to spin a web. How do I start?" "Take a deep breath," said Charlotte, smiling. Wilbur breathed deeply. "Now climb to the highest place you can get to, like this." Charlotte raced to the top of the doorway. Wilbur scrambled to the top of the manure pile. "Very good," said Charlotte. "Now make an attachment with your spinnerets. Hurl yourself into space and let out a drag line as you go down." Wilbur hesitated for a moment. Then he jumped out into the air. He glanced hastily behind to see if a piece of rope was following him to check his fall, but nothing seemed to be happening in his rear, and the next thing you know, he landed with a thump. "Ugh," he grunted. Charlotte laughed so hard her web began to sway. "What did I do wrong?" asked the pig when he recovered from his bump. "Nothing," said Charlotte. "It was a nice try." "I think I'll try again," said Wilbur cheerfully. "I believe what I need is a piece of string to hold me." The pig walked out to his barn. "You there, Templeton," he called. The rat poked his head out from under the trough. "Got a piece of string I can borrow?" asked Wilbur. "I need to spin a web." "Yes, indeed," replied Templeton, who saved string. "No trouble at all. Anything to oblige." He crept into his hole, pushed the goose egg out of the way, and returned with an old piece of dirty white string. Wilbur examined it. "That's just the thing," he said. "Tie one end to my tail, will you, Templeton?" Wilbur crouched low with his thin curly tail toward the rat. Templeton seized the string, passed it around the long end of the pig's tail, and tied 2 half hitches. Charlotte watched in delight. Like Fern, she was truly fond of Wilbur, whose smelly pin and stale food attracted flies, which she needed, and she was proud to see that he was not a quitter, and that he was willing to try again to spin a web. While the rat and the spider and the little girl watched, Wilbur climbed again to the top of the manure pile, full of energy and hope. "Watch, everyone!" he cried, and summoned all the strength. He threw himself into the air, head first, the string trailing behind him, but as he had neglected to fasten the other end to anything, it didn't really do any good. Wilbur landed with a thud, crashed, and hurt. Tears came into his eyes. Templeton grinned. Charlotte just sat quietly. After a bit, she finally spoke. You can't spin a web, Wilbur, and I'd advise you to put the idea out of your head. You lack two things needed for spinning a web. What are they? Said Wilbur sadly. You lack a set of spinnerets, and you lack knowing how. But cheer up. You don't need a web. Zuckerman supplies you with 3 meals a day. Why should you worry about trapping food? Wilbur sighed. You're ever so much cleverer and brighter than I am, Charlotte. I guess I was just trying to show off. Serves me right. Templeton untied his string and took it back to his home. Charlotte returned to her weaving. You needn't feel too badly, Wilbur, she said. Not many creatures can spin webs. Even men aren't as good as spiders, although they think they're pretty good. But they'll try anything. Did you ever hear of the Queensboro Bridge? Wilbur shook his head. Is it a web? Sort of, replied Charlotte. But do you know how long it took men to build it? 8 whole years. My goodness. I would have starved to death waiting that long. I could build a web in a single evening. What do people catch on the Queensboro Bridge? Bugs? Said Wilbur. No, said Charlotte. They don't catch anything. They just keep trotting back and forth across the bridge, thinking there is something better on the other side. If they'd hang head down at the top of the thing and wait quietly, maybe something good would come along. But no. With men, it's rush, rush, rush every minute. I'm glad I'm a sedentary spider. What's sedentary mean? Said Wilbur. Well, it means I sit still a good part of the time, and I don't go wandering all over creation. I know a good thing when I see it, and my web is a good thing. I stay put and wait for what comes. Gives me a chance to think. Well, I'm sort of a sedentary myself, I guess, said the pig. I have to hang around here whether I want to or not. You know where I'd really like to go this evening? Where? In the forest, looking for beech nuts and truffles and detectable roots. Pushing leaves aside with my wonderfully strong nose, searching and sniffing along the ground, smelling and smelling and smelling. You smell just the way you are, remarked the lamb, who had just walked in. You can smell you from here. You're the smelliest creature in this place. Wilbur hung his head. His eyes grew wet with tears. Charlotte noticed his embarrassment, and she spoke sharply to the lamb. Let Wilbur alone. He has a perfect right to smell, considering his surroundings. You're no bundle of sweet peas yourself. Furthermore, you are interrupting a perfectly pleasant conversation. What were we talking about, Wilbur, when we were rudely interrupted? I don't remember, said Wilbur. It doesn't make any difference. Let's not talk anymore for a while, Charlotte. I'm getting sleepy. You go ahead and finish fixing your web. I'm just going to lie here and watch you. It's a lovely evening. Wilbur stretched out on his side. The twilight settled over Zuckerman's barn, and a feel of peace settled. Fern knew it was almost supper time, but she couldn't bear to leave. Swallows passed on silent wings in and out of the doorway, bringing food to their young ones. From across the road a songbird, whip-poor-will, whip-poor-will, Larvae sat down under the apple tree and lit his pipe. The animals sniffed the familiar strong smell of tobacco. Wilbur heard the thrill of the tree toad and the occasional slamming of the kitchen door. All these sounds made him feel comfortable and happy, for he loved life and loved to be part of the world on a summer evening. But as he lay there, he remembered what the old sheep had told him. The thought of death came to him, and he began to tremble with fear. "Charlotte," he said softly. "Yes, Wilbur." "I don't want to die." "Of course you don't," said Charlotte in a comfortable voice. "I just love it here in the barn," said Wilbur. "I love everything about this place." "Of course you do," said Charlotte. "We all do." The goose appeared, followed by her 7 gooselings. They thrust their necks out and kept up a musical whistling, like tiny trumpets and pipers. Wilbur listened to the sound with love in his heart. "Charlotte," he said. "Yes," said the spider. "Were you serious that you promised you would keep them from killing me?" I was never more serious in my life, and I am not going to let anything happen to you, Wilbur." "How are you going to save me?" Asked Wilbur. His curiosity was very strong at this point. "Well," said Charlotte, kind of vaguely, "I don't really know, but I'm working on a plan." "That's wonderful," said Wilbur. "How is the plan coming, Charlotte? Have you got very far with it? Is it coming along pretty well?" Wilbur was trembling again, but Charlotte was cool and collected. "Oh, it's coming along all right," she said lightly. "The plan is still in its early stages and hasn't completely shaped yet, but I'm working on it." "When do you work on it?" begged Wilbur. "When I'm hanging head down at the top of my web. That's when I do my thinking, because then all the blood is in my head." "I'd be only too glad to help if I can." "Oh, I'd like to work on it alone," said Charlotte. "I can think better when I think alone." "All right," said Wilbur. "But don't fail to let me know if there's anything I could do to help, no matter how slight." "Well," replied Charlotte, "you must try to build yourself up. I want you to get plenty of sleep and stop worrying. Never hurry and never worry. Chew your food thoroughly and eat every bit of it, except you must leave enough for Templeton. Gain weight and stay well. That's the way you can help. Keep fit and don't lose your nerve. Do you think you can understand that?" "Yes, I understand," said Wilbur. "Go along to bed then," said Charlotte. "Sleep is important." Wilbur trotted over to the darkest corner of his pen and threw himself down. He closed his eyes. In another moment he spoke. "Charlotte," he said. "Yes, Wilbur." "May I go out to my trough and see if I left any of my supper? I think I left a tiny bit of mashed potatoes." "Very well," said Charlotte, "but I want you in bed again without delay." Wilbur started to race out to his yard. "Slowly, slowly," said Charlotte. "Never hurry and never worry." Wilbur checked himself and crept slowly to his trough. He found a bit of potatoes and chewed it carefully, swallowed it, walked back to his bed. He closed his eyes and was silent for a while. "Charlotte," he whispered. "Yes?" "May I get a drink of milk? I think there's a few drops in my trough." "No, the trough is dry, and I want you to go to sleep. No more talking. Close your eyes and go to sleep." Wilbur shut his eyes. Fern got up from her stool and started for home, her mind filled with everything that she'd seen and heard. "Good night, Charlotte," said Wilbur. "Good night, Wilbur." There was a pause. "Good night, Charlotte." "Good night, Wilbur." "Good night." "Good night." We are now going to be on chapter 10, which we will read at a different date, but like I promised, I will show you the pictures of Wilbur trying to do. So here's Wilbur to the top of his manure pile. He tried to jump off so that he can do his web just like Charlotte did. And here's Wilbur and Templeton. Templeton is helping him out by tying to the end of his tail. Okay. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and we will read some more later. Bye. Virtual hug. Boop.